Now that's what I call a movie collection. What? My movies? Where are they? Where are they? I didn't believe I would ever live to see the day this would happen, but I have officially downsized my physical media collection. Yep, this is my collection now. It has been reduced from 2 shelves worth of movies down to a single stack. Okay, enough with the clickbait. I didn't actually get rid of all of my movies. The collection that you might have seen featured in my collection videos and other videos in general is still sitting safely in my parents' house where I no longer live. That's right, I moved out. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details, but long story short, I moved out, and because I can, I left a lot of stuff behind with my parents, including my movie collection. That being said, I did only move a couple of hours north, so I can go back and grab stuff whenever I want, but to be totally honest, most of it is safer being left at home anyway. Now that I am out on my own, I'd rather be light on my feet, but that didn't stop me from bringing a small piece of my collection with me. What can I say? I feel naked without my Steelbook Edition 4K Blu-ray copy of Michael Mann's 1995 crime thriller film Heat. Plus, I wouldn't have the credibility to make a video like this if I didn't have a 4K Blu-ray within arm's reach. After moving out of home, I can honestly say that I understand why a lot of people don't get into physical media. It sucks having too much stuff to move around with you, especially if you don't like staying in one place. A Netflix subscription is much lighter than a shelf of Blu-rays, but the thought of not being able to watch the '07 Transformers film at a moment's notice keeps me up at night. That's the core purpose behind this stack of movies that I brought with me. They are films that I love and constantly watch. Having permanent and easy access to these films is essential to me. That's why they came with me. And before you tell me that I would have been better off burning them to a hard drive, I need these movies in the highest quality format possible, okay? As for what decided the number of titles I chose to bring with me, well, I have this shelf in my room and I designated a single shelf space to hold the stack I brought with me, which can hold 19 standard disc cases. Pretty self-explanatory, but let me tell you, it was not easy to select 19 films out of this mess. With all that being said, what movies did I actually bring with me? Alright, so this is the stack of movies that I brought with me. If it's not already obvious, I still haven't really figured out how to shoot videos in my new location yet. I don't actually hate the setup though. I think a little bit of nature here coming in from the outside there works pretty nicely. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly walk through what warranted each of these films coming with me and why I believe this is the focused, minimized version of my collection. And, you know, it'll become pretty apparent throughout this little section why I chose what I chose and why I took this range of films. But anyway, the best way to describe this is just get straight into it. First up, got a bit of horror, because we have to. The original Scream on 4K. Scream is probably my favorite horror film of all time. I adore it. It's either this or Nightmare on Elm Street, which is funny considering that they're both directed by Wes Craven. Scream just blew me away from the first time I watched it. I think it's an incredibly compelling and inventive commentary on what slasher films were at the time it released. Now you kind of look back on it and, I don't know, critiquing the genre became a bit more common after this film. Films have done very similar things to Scream since then. But the fact is, this film was just wholly original when it came out. It was such a breath of fresh air for the slasher genre. It just reinvented it, reinvigorated it. And even decades after what the movies it was critiquing, it's still a kick-ass slasher film in its own right. That's the thing, it's taking the piss out of slasher films, but it's still a great slasher film in its own right. And yeah, it is just one of my favorite films of all time. It's unmatched still to this day, and I love it. Then going in a somewhat different direction, into action, we have Saving Private Ryan. Now, I tried not to bring too many similar films with me in this collection. And for this one personally, I was tossing up between whether or not I was going to bring Saving Private Ryan or Fury, the Brad Pitt movie. I landed on Saving Private Ryan just because I think it... In terms of war films, Fury and Private Ryan are probably the two very best, in my opinion, but this one just beats Fury, not Fury, Fury. And, I mean, it's just a little extra things this movie has over Fury that beats it, and it's a classic for a reason, man. I have to bring it with me. Plus, that's also one of the best looking 4K discs I have ever seen. Keeping it with action for a little while, Rambo, First Blood, or as it was originally known, just First Blood. I have very mixed feelings towards the Rambo films. First Blood is one of my favorite films of all time. I think it is a brilliant action film, super subversive too, considering that Rambo doesn't actually kill anyone in this movie, which is a far cry from what would later happen in the franchise. Yes, he does technically kill someone in this movie, but it's not on purpose. And, you know, I think this film just has something that is really lacking from the other films, and that's the kind of more thoughtful approach to Rambo as a person and as a character. It's more of an this film is more of an exploration of the effects of Vietnam and, you know, how veterans were treated after the fact and what that does to the men that were sent to fight this war. And it's incredibly emotional and impactful. And honestly, I still think maybe besides Rocky, Rambo is Stallone's best character. And, you know, in terms of filmmaking, this film it's unmatched in a lot of ways still, especially the early on chase with Rambo on the dirt bike and the police cruiser. Brilliant. One of the best chases I've ever seen. And yeah, in terms of the rest of my franchise, the only other Rambo film I really like is Rambo, the fourth one. Part 2's too cheesy for me, Part 3 is too cheesy for me, and Last Blood is just an awful movie. Next up, mid-90s, Jonah Hill's directorial debut, and one of my favorite films of all time. Such a comforting film, such a relatable film. Well, maybe not necessarily for me. I'm a kid from Australia, not a kid from LA, I think is where this movie's based. But this just feels like a very natural fly on the wall film. It's a love letter to growing up and being a misfit and discovering yourself as a child and trying to fit in somewhere. It's a really tight, short film, wonderfully acted, wonderfully directed. It's one of my go-tos for whenever I need to pick me up. Jonah Hill should really make another movie, man. The Matrix. Love this first Matrix movie. I think it is a perfect film for a lot of reasons. And, you know, it's a shame that none of the sequels ever quite matched the magic of this first film. I don't think I had to explain this one. It's an action classic. It's one of the best action films ever made, and that 4K, of course, looks excellent. A lot of action here. If you don't already know, I do have my genre preferences. But yeah, Fury Road. One of the best action films ever made. Certainly one of the best action films to come out in the past 10 years. I think this movie might actually almost be 10 years old. Maybe next year. But yeah. Non-stop action, brilliant performances from Hardy and Theron, inventive action, super original visuals and aesthetics. Miller really knows what he's doing. Furiosa, solid follow-up to this. A little bit disappointed by that movie, but I think that's just because Fury Road set the bar so high. And look, a reoccurring factor with all these 4Ks that I have with me is that they all have brilliant picture quality. They just do. It's one of the things that I focused on when I was bringing movies up here with me. It was, all right, I want films that look good, that warrant being on disc. So pretty much all of these fit that criteria. And maybe, okay, no, I'll save the next point for a little bit further because it's going to come much more apparent after movies like Labyrinth. Much like mid-90s, this is just a comfort film for me. I think it's just so nice and light and just fun. It's a great kids film, man. I mean, you got Bowie, Jim Henson, of course. The puppetry in this is brilliant, and you just don't get films like this anymore. It's a personal favorite of mine. Enough said. Then another big one, Jaws on 4K. One of the best looking 4K discs of all time, and I love Jaws. It's a perfect film, in my opinion. Just thinking about it, man, makes me happy. Who knew that a film about a psychotic shark could do that? But yeah, man, Jaws is a classic. I have to have it with me. I love this film. Seen it so many times, and this 4K only makes me want to watch it more. One I actually recently rewatched, Across the Spider-Verse. I had a big toss-up between this and the first one, but I had a rule with this stack that I didn't want more than one film from the same series. That was a rule I set because I needed variety in this stack. That was a big point of it. So I chose Across because honestly, even after a rewatch, I do think I like this one a little bit more than Into the Spider-Verse. It's the first one. And, I do genuinely think this is one of the best looking animated films of all time, and the 4K looks incredible. Again, just another really nice, comforting, inspiring film too. And a film that is the opposite of comforting, Alien, the 4K. I actually had to import this one from the US because by the time I realized that I actually did really, really like this first Alien film, the Australian 4K was out of print. Shame. But I have it now. I got it for a good price, and now it's with me because, again, a little bit of horror, mix it up. Alien is just a tremendous film. Still my personal favorite of the entire franchise, and I think it's unmatched even by Aliens, in my opinion. Had to bring a little bit of Bond with me, and I chose Casino Royale. It's my favorite Bond film. Again, another near perfect action film. I can't say a bad thing about this movie. It's one I go back to a lot, which is why it's, of course, in the pile. And another film I come back to a lot, one of my all-time favorites, The Dark Knight. I had to bring a Nolan film with me, of course, and I chose maybe not my favorite, but I think the one that best displays what this 4K format can do. I took this one with me for the IMAX sequences because I just have to have that. It's one of the defining features of this 4K. And honestly, this is pretty much the very best of the format, and The Dark Knight is one of my favorite films of all time. Plus, I had to have a little bit of superhero in there somewhere. Another interesting one, Dazed and Confused. Again, just another comfort film of mine. This movie, I watched it for the first time in a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Shifting time of my life. A period of great change. Basically, I watched this movie just before I started, sort of getting into the kind of antics that they do in this film, and then revisiting it after arguably I'm still doing all of that stuff, but after I'd done it for the first time, going back to it now, it just reminds me of fun times and my friends, and, what's the Matthew McConaughey line in the movie again? Not the all right. It's the, you just gotta keep living, man. Again, another comfort film. It's one I revisit a lot. That's why I brought it with me. Transformers. I had to bring a Transformers film with me. It was between this, the 86 film. God, I just blanked on that. Yes, the 86 film, and Dark of the Moon. I landed on Transformers because I do think, besides being one of my favorites, it is arguably just the best film of those three from an objective standpoint. And, I literally rewatched this one like a couple weeks ago, so I think it warrants being in my collection. And I guess we'll just look at these next two together because, I don't even have to explain these. And yes, I do have the sequels on 4K, but they did not make the cut. And I know I kind of broke my rule saying I couldn't have more than one film in a series. And I have, but to be fair, these ones, it's cheating a bit because there's 3 films in a standard case. So that sort of helped me a little bit. But it's Star Wars. Star Wars is an exception, as I think you'll all understand. Another big one, The Crow on 4K. The Crow it's definitely a contender for my favorite film of all time, and I think That alone justifies why I brought it with me. Plus, look how beautiful that 4K disc is. The Virgin Suicides on 4K. Again, this is a film, it broadens the genre of this pile a little bit, something a bit more different, a bit more out there that, it spices up this pile a little bit, so it's not just action films and Star Wars. And of course, this one did also come with me because it is one of my favorite films of all time. I love it, I adore it, it's beautiful, it's heartbreaking, it's everything you could ask for. And finishing off with another favorite film of all time contender, Heat, the 4K Steelbook. One of the nicest items I have in my collection, and I love this film. It's funny because it's a almost 3-hour film that even despite its runtime, I have no issue sitting down and rewatching this thing. This is a perfect action film as well in my opinion, and this Steelbook is worthy of that title. And yeah, that's everything. Back to the other whatever crap I was saying before. As you can see, I put a lot of thought into this humble little pile. It's a perfect blend of great films that I love and films that I constantly rewatch. I also tried to get a nice variety of different genres and moods. It's nice to have a light and fluffy film like Labyrinth to watch when I don't want to tank the emotional damage from a film like The Virgin Suicides. This stack of movies is perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Do I miss the rest of my collection? Absolutely. But having a small collection like this again is a refreshing experience that I am quite enjoying. I'm also still gonna keep buying movies, so I had to limit the amount of titles I brought with me because of the inevitable fact that even this stack of films is going to grow over time, and I had to future-proof my shelf space. I only brought 4 physical video games with me, man. I had to be ruthless with the other stuff to make space for future titles, okay? Not to mention that I only brought 2 books, no CDs, no records, no Transformers. I feel like I've almost gone full monk mode, bro. Even though I'm going to continue to purchase new titles, I'm gonna have to be really picky with what I choose to buy now because I don't want to accidentally build a new separate collection that rivals the old one, because that would be a nightmare to move to a new rental. Moving out has actually given me a whole new appreciation for streaming services like Netflix and Spotify. Most people my age are renting right now, and with renting comes uncertainty. While it's incredibly unlikely we could get kicked out of our homes next week. Our property managers could choose not to continue our leases. The property owners could end up turning our homes into Airbnbs. There are a lot of scenarios that could end up with us being temporarily homeless, and the less stuff we have to cart around with us if we're stuck in between living spaces, the better. Physical media collections like the one that I had at my parents' place just aren't practical for a lot of people. Yes, it's nice and I love the thing, but it has a massive potential to cause major headaches for me if I ever choose to bring it into my current rental. Not to mention that I just don't have the space in my room for the shelves anymore, and if I put it anywhere else in the house, I would probably get bashed by my housemates. Well, okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't think anyone would be happy with me if I put a shelf of Blu-rays in the middle of our living area. Streaming is simply the most practical option for a large majority of people now, but damn it, that isn't stopping me from being a physical media diehard. I mean, I could resort to the good old DVD binder, but I'm not quite that desperate yet. So yeah, that's my downsizing story. Thank you for listening. I know a lot of people out there rent and still make collections that are bigger than mine work, but I'm just not at that stage in my life right now. I'm like a shark right now, man. I need to keep moving or I'll die. And I've never seen a shark with a Blu-ray collection on its back. Holy fuck! Now that I've shared my story, I want to hear from you guys. What form does your physical media collection currently hold? Do you have a small stack like me, or are you in the position where you can store a huge collection in your living space? Have you ever been forced to give up physical media altogether, or do you make it work? Is streaming the best option for people to watch media now, or do you still firmly believe in physical media's superiority? Whatever your story is, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, guys. It means means the world to me. As always, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next video. Also, does anybody have a moving truck that I can borrow? No reason in particular. I just need to move these 2 items that just so happen to look like 2 shelves full of Blu-rays. They definitely aren't Blu-rays. They're drugs. Wait, no, damn it. Never mind.